Hello, Joy. Looks like you're on mute. Awesome.
Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going good.
Good to
It's
see
going
you. Happy
great.
Tuesday.
Yeah, happy Tuesday. Yeah. Feels a little bit like Wednesday, but it's a Tuesday. So we're super excited to be here with you on Playwire's live on LinkedIn and YouTube. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course.
I'm
I'll take
excited to learn a lot from you. I am not the self-proclaimed expert. Joy Youell is here with us today. She's a CEO and marketing consultant who's worked as a fractional CMO and communications director, marketing growth consultant for a ton of different companies. Indeed. Like the list goes on and on, but some of them are Johnson and Johnson, American Express, Indeed. She's also the founder of Hire a Writer, which is a world-class digital copywriting agency that has been such a gift to me in various roles in my career, and also owns and operates Baby Got Backlink, and it's a CEO backlinking agency, and the Academy of Continuing Education. Again, a huge resource for me. I've learned a lot from Joy, and I know today is going to be no different. And I'm looking forward to just talking all things Google algorithm, SGE updates, all the things. So as much as we can talk about in 20 minutes, I guess,
Yeah.
right? So thank you so much.
An hour and a half for this keynote.
Yeah.
Like, so.
You're like, all the things, that's a 6-week course,
Yeah.
Courtney. Okay, yeah.
Put that together.
So yeah. So for those that may be watching today that are unfamiliar with SGE or the Google Search Generative Experience, please, can you just give us a quick overview? What do we need to know?
Sure. So as we all know, Google functions based on an algorithm. For the most part, that algorithm is a black box, but lest we be intimidated, the only thing an algorithm is a set of rules. It's just a set of rules, right? By which Google organizes answers to queries. That's its entire function. So we get caught up in like the behemoth monopoly that is Google and kind of forget that it's like literally just matching words to answers. That's all it's doing, right? So as artificial intelligence has evolved and large language models, which is the big technology behind things like ChatGPT and Claude AI and kind of some of these chatbot-based AI models for content, large language models, as the technology for that evolved, Google was basically able to take its biggest resource, which is language, right? It has more data on language use than any other organization in the world. And it was able to take that data and begin to build AI systems that not just leveraged the existing technology of matching queries to answers, but that then began to synthesize and create answers. And essentially, that's what the Search Generative Experience is. So if you have been tracking this, if you are on the internet at all, you've probably at least seen it, right? Bard was kind of the initial model that Google put to market. Bard was immediately like, not great. And so Google has since iterated and reshaped and retooled and taken its technology and continued. Like Bard's Delay was launched a bunch of times and all that. Now they've rebranded it. And so if you're looking for Google's AI, it's going to be called Gemini. Okay. So Gemini is the current model that Google is using for like artificial intelligence and organic search and things like that. But the Search Generative Experience, if you already see it, is basically Google giving you its own answer to your query. And it'll tell you where that answer comes from, kind of, but it's going to be the first thing you see on the search engine results page. So, if you go to the search engine results page, you Google, how to fix my toilet right now, whatever, right? You've got some kind of like major thing you need to figure out. You'll immediately see the bar up top that has all the different categories, right? So all the different like video results, search results, whatever. You'll see ads. There's usually ads that are going to be sponsored content at the top of your feed. And then you'll start to see actual answers from websites, right? And the search engine results page will then organize those answers based on what they think is most relevant to you, right? Based on what Google thinks is most relevant to you. And that's where SEO comes into play, right? Great SEOs can get to the top of that page by the content being the best answer. You'll also see things like the people also ask, which I mentioned because it's relevant here in just a second. And you'll see a couple of other things through the course of the page. So we know that Google sunset pagination. So that's not a feature of the search engine results page anymore. But basically, if we were to drill it down to boil it down to brass tacks, SGE is the experience of seeing not that old page anymore, but a new version of the search engine results page. And I thought I would show it to you because if you're on a business Google workspace, you may not see SGE yet, but you can see it with a personal email. So for instance, I had to sign up with like my personal Gmail in order to be able to preview what the SGE looks like. And you can also obviously just Google it.
Super helpful because I am always online with business Google
We are as
So,
marketers,
yeah.
right? We're professional Googlers.
So I'm like, I don't know that I have been experiencing what you
This
are,
is literally what.
except for this.
So this is what it looks like. Okay. So it says, if
Mm.
somebody had done a long tail inquiry, what's better for a family with kids under 3 and a dog, Bryce Canyon, blah, blah, blah. And then this was the result it generated. So what's missing? So we still see the categories up top that we used to see. That's still there, but we don't see sponsored content right away. The very first thing on the page we see is the generated answer. So this is generated by Gemini, let's say, okay? And it basically is pulling from these sources over here, and Google is under a lot of fire to make it visible, to make the source of the generated result visible. And I'm sure they will, because it is quite important. And then, okay, so that's like, right, blew up the search engine results page, big deal. Then it's also kind of beginning to prompt you with related questions. So if you've been in an SEO for any length of time, you know that semantic relationships are a big deal with SEO strategies, right? We have topic clusters. We use related language, related ideas to build more topical authority. That's the whole point. It looks like what Google's doing with this are kind of supporting or curating the experience by suggesting those related questions, almost like a chatbot, right? Because we're starting to get used to interacting with chatbots. It makes good sense that Google's trying to mimic that experience, because it actually has started to lose traffic share to things like ChatGPT and Claude because people are using those instead of Google.
Sure. So like if you're asking this, then you more than likely want to know this and want to know this and want to know.
And then, I mean, look how brilliant. And then they're immediately asking for data. Was this good? Was this not? Right? Thumbs up, thumbs down. I mean, it's a smart way to do it. And then you've got it kind of organized beneath. So I just wanted to show that to anybody who hasn't seen SGE, because it will be rolling out. And then obviously as marketers, as ad tech professionals, as business owners,
publishers, people who are publishing their own content, wanting a lot of site traffic.
There are a lot of points of consideration. This has been a record-breaking year for volatility in search. It has been the most volatile last probably 18 months that we've ever seen in search. Good news, bad news, it is what it is. We just have to learn how to see what's going on and then adapt to it. So that's kind of the big picture of what SGE is, what it's going to look like, and how it's structured.
Yeah, I think that, a question I have is since they're structuring it, since they're pulling from, it looks like multiple sources to kind of curate a whole answer, and they have those three. It was very small on my screen, but because we're in here, it's totally fine. But the three sources of they think as the sources of truth, like. This seems like a real opportunity, though. Like it seems like a positive opportunity for people to optimize, rework content. And it's not maybe as doom and gloom. Maybe it's the marketer in me, an optimistic human being. But what are some of your observations? Is it as doom and gloom, or is it more of that opportunity that I kind of see it as being able to overtake people that maybe were holding top spots? But if we rework content, is there a possibility for us to move our content up in the rankings?
Yes. And I'm an eternal optimist. But more important probably than optimism is the fact that the opportunity that we are now aware of, right? So SEOs used to be gamers. We used to game the system. 20 years ago, we'd put white on white text, keyword stuff the heck out of something and call it a day, right? And we'd see performance and it'd be amazing and it'd be easy and all this stuff. Not so much, right? For the past decade, Google has, worked very hard to eliminate the gaming, the black hat SEOs, the gray hat SEOs. This last Google update, basically the hammer fell on AI generated content that was spammy, right? So these websites that were just churning garbage content out and ranked just all got de-indexed. It was dramatic. But what we're seeing now is an invitation to say, okay, at the end of the day, what I started this conversation with, Google, the entire function of Google is to match a query to the best possible answer. And so what hasn't changed is the fact that topical authority is going to always win. And so we have this invitation, this very visible opportunity right now to get away from like, I want to go after these 20 keywords, which is old. Don't do that. And even maybe a little bit graduate from topic clusters of the future to saying, what do we actually have topical authority on? Like research level, best in class, literally best in the world. What do we know and what can we say that is truly like line in the sand, flag on the mountain? This is what we are the absolute best resource for.
Yeah.
And I like that because that flies in the face of the idea of churn and burn, right? SEO content that's just out there to get keywords. It's really about, can you provide quick, well-formatted, well-thought-out, authoritative information to somebody on the internet who's searching for something?
And there's a level of authenticity to that that's really, really incredible. As a brand, as a content creator, as a publisher, is just being super authentic to what you truly are the authority of versus, to your point, what does my audience want to know? And am I really the authority on that? And, audiences can sniff out that inauthenticity pretty quickly. So that's an incredible insight. I see it as such a huge opportunity as well. And have been diving in myself and it's a whole new world, and it's always been a game, right? It's always been gamification. It's always learning the new thing that we need to work in. So so you kind of touched on it, like changing SEO best practices a little bit. And like, we have a lot of like long tail queries, and those are like a beloved strategy. Like you're starting to kind of touch on that a little bit. Can you speak a little bit more? Like, is that a waste of time? Like what's kind of essential if you're really worried about this, where it's can be a little overwhelming if you're thinking about kind of upending strategy, but I'd love to hear more of your insight.
Yeah, I think that, first of all, I do think anybody who was paying attention got scared away from exclusively using AI for content because of what just happened, because it was a bloodbath, right? So I do think I'm very encouraged by that, right? Because I think most of us realize like Google's not going to stand for this, and we need to be thinking more strategically about content. The next thing I would say is I think that there's a huge opportunity here to rethink formatting. So I'm actually going to teach in my SEO 102 class this afternoon. I'm going to be teaching about SERP features optimization. But one of the things that you want to think about when you're putting content on the internet now, and like Playwire started doing this, which was a really good idea, is like you guys have a mini TOC. You've got a mini table of contents for every article. You need to think about, you need to really remember, again, I'm going to like beat the drum, that you're just answering questions. That's what you're doing. And if you don't answer the question early, right? So you don't need to write, this is Recipe Bloggers 101, right? Like you don't need to write a whole novel before you answer the question. Answer it quickly and then answer it more deeply, right? There's ways to keep people on a page without withholding the reason they got to that page, right? Like,
absolutely.
So
like you don't have to dig and scratch and claw to find
the trauma before I figure out how much baking soda goes in. Like there's the happy balance.
Yes, agree. Understood.
So thinking about structure, thinking about like structured data markup, thinking about bullet lists, thinking about at what point in the article you're setting up the cause and effect and answering people's questions and things like that. And then thinking to multimedia. So we know that YouTube and TikTok are these huge search engines. So we would be remiss just to have this conversation be about Google, because if all your eggs are in the Google basket, I would say you're in trouble. Like it feels impenetrable right now, right? It feels like Google will never go anywhere, but there's no danger in diversification. And so you need to think about all the places people are looking for answers. Generationally, where are they going? From your audience personas, where are they going? And are you ensuring that you're kind of truly in SEO best practices, having your content show up in various formats, in various places, so that you can answer people's questions in the way they're asking them. And if it's
absolutely
voice, you've got content that's optimized for voice text. If it's local, you've got content that's optimized for local SEO. If it's video query, you've got optimized for video how-tos, all of that. Think about the content that you create and what is actually the most effective way to provide somebody with an answer. How are they asking? How can you most effectively provide the answer? So I really think it's not as much refine SEO strategies, although that always needs to be done because the nature of, table stakes change, the nature of the game changes. But I really think it's more like zoom out and look at the big picture of the language, the messaging, the content that your company is putting out into the world, and consider, is this as helpful as it can possibly be? Where do I really have topical authority? I'm not just faking. Where do I really know what I'm talking about? Lean into that and then just go ham. Like go all in on creating the best quality, the most robust, the most thorough answers to questions. Over time, you'll win.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting when you bring up the diversification too, and not all of your eggs in one basket. Recently, we were at Mom 2.0 having a lot of discussions with content publishers in the parenting and family and mom and kids space and recipes and all those things. And quite a lot of them were really putting all of their eggs, if you will, in just the influencer, content creator, social buckets, and not diversifying and not pointing back to their websites. And it's just such an interesting common thread across all publishers and creators is, you see this one area that you're able to really monetize and make a lot of money at. But there's, when you put all your eggs in another platform's basket, like can be a recipe for disaster, not owning and pointing back to your website. So when you bring up TikTok and you bring up some of these other places, YouTube, that are basically their own search engines, being able to point back to an owned platform is just an incredible strategy. And so I think that doing some of that longer form content on your sites and then being able to chop that down for the different of YouTube and TikTok is just really, really, really interesting, and something we talked heavily about with a lot of creators, where they felt like kind of rejuvenated to pick their blogs back up and pick their websites back up, because there's a lot of things that need to be done when you're doing all that.
And so statistically, your website is your only appreciable asset digitally. Like, Instagram doesn't appreciate in value. TikTok doesn't appreciate. It doesn't matter how many folders you have. It doesn't matter how much money you've made. It could turn off. And so instantly. It's absolutely imperative, that your website presence is core to your content strategy. I can't imagine longevity any other way. I mean, you wouldn't put your money in a bank you wouldn't put all your life savings in a bank that's existed for 5 years and is not FDIC insured.
Absolutely not.
You do that?
No, absolutely not.
So it's just perspective of this was a quick win, fine, but there needs to be, what's the long-term play?
And it's an amazing tool, amazing tool to point to your own platform, your own space. I'm kind of going off on a tangent there, but I feel like I'm so passionate about it for publishers and for content creators to be really careful about that. And you said all your eggs in one basket. I was like, that's no more true than that circumstance. So what are 3 priorities that creators you feel like they need to focus on to set themselves up for success if this feels very overwhelming and daunting for them?
First, I would say they need to think about their content like an ecosystem. So too often you've got, anybody who creates content for a living has a plan. You're not just creating content randomly. If you're making money from content, you have a plan, which is great. But I think that they often think about their content and their body of work in a very segmented way. So it's like, okay, here's my written long form blog content that appeals to these kind of people. Here's my TikTok content that appeals to these kind of people. Here's my Instagram content. Here's my YouTube content. There's a huge segmentation that happens in their body of work. And I think that it's vitally important, even just from a statistics perspective, to consider the interplay of these elements. It is fundamental to SEO that there is an interrelationship between your website and things that happen on your website and things that happen off your website, right? Like backlinks
Yeah.
and like
Mhm.
traffic and like all these flows, right? So I think it's really important for content creators, especially, to think about the entire ecosystem and then to assign values. Like treat your content like a business asset, right? You've got
Mhm.
asset classes in your business. Treat your content like that. Maybe your videos are worth this much. Maybe your shorts are worth this much. Maybe your blogs are worth this much. And because unless they think that way at that level of
Mhm.
sophistication, they're never going to sustain the investment that it's going to take to really win in the long
Yeah.
term.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
think that's really important.
That is very important. That strategy for scaling and for growth and
Right.
just the sustainability is so important. What else do we need to know,
Yeah.
Joy? I know we only have a few more minutes, I think, and I know that there's a lot to unpack, but I'd love for you to share with us some of
Yeah.
your final thoughts and insights.
I can't leave a hanging list or I'll have a stomach ache
Okay.
for the rest
Oh
of the
yeah,
day.
I did
So
ask for three things.
the first, I seriously am like anxious. So the first is a
Love that.
content system. The second I would say is taxonomy.
Mm.
Some people do this really well, and some content creators do this terribly because they have inherited success from old versions of search where it was like, I can just post
Mm.
all the time and it works. And so there's no sense of understanding like the technical SEO components of their website and how taxonomy and structured content and like the actual like organization
Mhm.
functions in terms of like user experience and then how those turn into like Google ranking factors. I think that's really important. And then third, I think that every single person who creates content or owns a digital platform, owns a website, should be tuned in to what's going on in SEO. This
Mm.
is like make or break it. Like you
Yeah.
could lose everything kind of level seriousness right now. And with what's changing in SGE, people need to be tuned in. So I would follow like Lily Ray is really great to follow on LinkedIn. She puts up tons. I would follow John Mueller and all of the Google people. Make sure you have Google alerts set for, Google algo
Mhm.
updates, Google News, things like that. Because if you're not prepared in advance for some of these changes that are coming, you're going to experience unexpected volatility in your business
Mm.
that could ultimately affect your bottom line, which
Yeah.
is unacceptable in my opinion. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
It's your asset. Your site is your website is your asset. You got to keep the traffic good, top of mind. All right. So you closed out the list. No stomach aches for
I feel
you.
better now.
Sorry about that. um, so thank you so much for your time. Is there any final things you wanted to share with the audience today about SGE and SEO in general?
I think that it's important. Okay, so somebody who commercializes content for a living, right? Which I mean, I do. I'm a ghostwriter. What I
Mhm.
create is commercialized. It's important to preserve your love of the craft. And
Mm.
even if you're creating content for the express purpose of commercialization and making money, if you lose heart and you get discouraged and you stop honing your skills of communication, regardless of the medium, that disillusionment is a greater fallout than anything SGE will ever do to your website, than anything that TikTok will ever do to your account. Like, people get into content creation because they're good at telling stories, they're good at connecting with humans, and
Mhm.
like there's something beautiful in that. And I
Yeah.
think there's a real risk when you start to understand the business side and you get really ambitious and you know the math and you know all these things, to kind of
Mm.
lose the love of the craft, which it ultimately is.
Oh, so good and so true. It's so true. Sometimes you take something that's a passion, you love it so much, you turn it into a business, and it does. You do lose the love for it and start to resent it. That's such a beautiful final thought. Thank you so much, Joy. So insightful. So
Absolutely.
many things to Google and research. I'm sure I'm sure everybody is feeling that, taking lots of notes and wanting to do their own research. So thank you so much for joining us on Playwire Live, and talk to you next time.
Anytime. Thanks, Court.
Bye.
Bye.